So he needs to buy players. You can't win anything with kids.
With the young players, you cannot win. It's not possible.
To make it in top-level football, you need talent, luck, and a strong work ethic. Having a good platform and environment are also really crucial. Getting opportunities as a young player can be really tough, so which club is the best for them? There's no easy answer here, so let me know in the comments what your thoughts are and we'll see if we disagree. Also, stick around until the end of the video to find out which club and league are the worst for young players. Let's break this down into 4 different approaches: the academy clubs, the scout and sell clubs, the platform clubs, and lastly, the big clubs that have kept their academy alive. I'm going to focus on Europe because statistically, this is where young players get their best shot. 17 of the 20 clubs with the highest amount of young players in the world are in the UEFA region. Let's start off with academy clubs, who spend most of their resources on exactly that, developing young players. Anderlecht are a good example of this, but they do have an unfair advantage over some of their national rivals just because of their reputation and standing. Still, they've brought through these kind of players over the years. In Spain, Athletic Bilbao are a unique example due to their tendency to only field Basque players, so they've kind of forced their hand in terms of developing players like these. Some cracking names there. Perhaps we should take out Kepa Arrizabalaga though and swap in Unai Simon, the current Spain keeper. But if you're not Basque, this really isn't the place for you. I'm going to go for the obvious option here, which is, of course, Ajax Amsterdam. They've excelled over the years, bringing talents like these through their ranks, and it came to a height in the mid-90s with the Super Invincibles, the Champions League winning side that contained players like Frank Rijkaard, Clarence Seedorf, the De Boer brothers, and Edgar Davids, and also Patrick Kluivert. Cracking team, cracking names, and all coming through that Ajax academy. Since then, they have brought through a never-ending stream of talents that earned them big cash, being sold after a few years in the Dutch doldrums. They also attract players from neighboring countries. I mean, what would Belgium's back line be without these 3 Ajax Academy graduates? Coaches like Johan Cruyff and Louis van Gaal set the precedent in terms of young players being given playing time. The total football model, possession-based attacking football, the 4-3-3 formation, those things have all prevailed, giving players from all ages a great consistency whilst rising through the ranks. Their academy is incredibly well funded, but top players will eventually leave. It's believed that there's a nominal salary cap of 40 grand per week, which isn't bad, but not up there with other Champions League clubs. Ajax arguably offer the best footballing education in the world and the surest path to first-team football. However, there is a ceiling. Success in the Dutch league doesn't necessarily mean big clubs will think you're good enough. So you may have to stay in the Eredivisie for a long while or join a Europa League club instead. By the way, Ajax also makes shrewd signings like Zlatan Ibrahimovic, Christian Eriksen and Luis Suarez, who they all snapped up early and sold for big cash. But scout and sell isn't really their forte. That's what I'm going to call clubs that do exactly that. Within their own country and abroad, they identify the best players and then sell them on as soon as a decent offer comes in, confident that they can replace from within. We'll get to the club that scouted and sold players like Eden Hazard in a moment, but first we need to talk about Portugal. Sporting and Benfica, the Lisbon pair that have done this better than arguably anyone else in the world. Benfica snapped up João Felix from Porto's academy and then sold him for a whopping 127 million euros to Atletico Madrid. International talents like Axel Witsel, Victor Lindelof and Angel Di Maria were all identified early on abroad and then sold on for big dough. Monopoly money, in fact. In the decade between 2010 and 2020, Benfica brought in almost 1.2 billion euros in transfer income, leading to a net transfer profit of around 600 million euros. Lots of French clubs follow this model too, and in fact, Ligue 1 give the most minutes out of all top 5 leagues to under 21 players. Lille being a prime example here. They brought through French players like these guys, but then also scout talent from across the Belgian border. They've really ramped up the scout and sell in recent years, and their current squad has about 75% foreign players. It's no coincidence that until recently their director of football was Portuguese scouting mastermind Luis Campos. Their biggest success was snapping up Nicolas Pepe for 3 million and then just 2 years later selling him on to the Gunners for 80 million euros. How's that working out, Arsenal? At Lille, you can be put into the shop window early or even rehabilitate your young career like Renato Sanchez has. The same goes for Benfica and Sporting, where you can quickly recommend yourself to other big European clubs. Even after winning the title, Lille have cashed in on their starting goalkeeper, right winger, and defensive midfielder, and the ambition to be great for a long time really isn't there. Dortmund, however, are a little less keen on fire sales. For me, the Black and Yellows are the quintessential platform club. When the player is ready, you need to let them leave, but platform clubs do this on their own terms. Other examples include Atalanta, Monaco, and Southampton, but Borussia Dortmund are the gold or yellow standard. After spending way too much money in the early 2000s and running into financial difficulties, the club pivoted away from chasing big names. What followed was a period of mediocrity until they decided to stand firm in the transfer market after losing a couple of star assets to rivals like Bayern. Since then, they have become the absolute kings of the margins while also remaining competitive in both the Bundesliga and the Champions League. Look at Kagawa, Aubameyang, Dembele, Pulisic, and also Jadon Sancho as great examples of the kind of profits they can bring in. So players leave, but on Dortmund's terms, and they also offer competitive football. They haven't finished outside of the top 4 since 2015, and the most recent time before that was in 2010. So you have Champions League football and a sort of semblance of a title race in the Bundesliga to get excited about. Out of all of the clubs across Europe's top 5 leagues, Dortmund handed out the most playing time to youngsters last season. They used 8 under-21 players this past campaign, and those 8 players contributed to 55 league goals. At the same time, they only had the 9th youngest squad in the Bundesliga, meaning veterans are there to give players a competitive environment. That's why players and parents of players, including ex-Bundesliga stars, speak so glowingly about the club.
My wife and I, we were hoping that he picked Dortmund because we had the same feeling that he had when we went to visit. We liked the club. I don't know if there's a better club in the world that develops young players and young talents into men and professional players like Dortmund.
My verdict? As a young player, you've got a low to medium risk here, but a really high reward. Fans are going to back their youngsters as they know they are usually there for at least a little while. Maybe don't expect Haaland to stick around too long, but there is trust, open communication, and a suitable platform, and you get great amount of playing time usually. Young players know that they will be moved not immediately and can grow and prepare for a move to a top club. But what if I told you you could start your career right at that big club? But what about your former clubs, Pep? True, Bayern haven't done too well since bringing through the likes of David Alaba and Thomas Müller. And even Real Madrid have hit a bit of a dry spell after bringing through the likes of Raúl. But Barcelona's La Masia Academy still stands strong as an example of a big club funneling youth products into their starting 11. In 2011, the top 3 players listed for the Ballon d'Or were all Barcelona Academy graduates: Xavi, Andres Iniesta, and Lionel Messi. In November 2012, Barcelona achieved the remarkable feat of fielding 11 academy products for a La Liga clash. And last season, they had the greatest percentage of under-21s players in La Liga, but that's still not as impressive as Manchester United. The last time Manchester United didn't include a homegrown academy player in their matchday squad was in 1937. That means they've gone over 4,000 consecutive matches with an academy product in their matchday squad, and that streak doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. Marcus Rashford is the biggest name, but a total of 9 current players in their squad went through the academy, 11 if you count Tom Heaton and Paul Pogba, who both returned after stints away, And technically, there are 5 more under-23 players listed in the squad to take United's total to 16 academy graduates in their Premier League squad next season. Go back in history and you'll see some of the world's best ever players came through Manchester United's academy. Duncan Edwards, George Best and Bobby Charlton all joined the academy, and the Munich air disaster caused the club to rebuild through homegrown talent, and that has remained ingrained in the club ethos until today. The biggest success story is arguably the class of '92, which included Paul Scholes, Nicky Butt, the Neville brothers and David Beckham. And back then, pundit Alan Hansen had this to say on them.
You can't win anything with kids. You look at that line at Manchester United today, and Aston Villa at 2:15 when they get the team sheet, it's just going to give them a lift, and it'll happen every time they play the kids.
Oh, how wrong he was. They would go on to win the treble. The employment rate of ex-Manchester United players is also really impressive. This season, again, you're going to see ex-academy graduates dotted across the Premier League, and even more if you look further down the leagues to the Championship and League One. It is really difficult for big clubs to get this balance just right. Clubs like Manchester City are trying, but it's proving to be difficult, and you also have to earn yourself that reputation. Right, Pep?
Can you understand when you look around this fantastic academy why people outside the club certainly are looking at City and wondering why there is, certainly over the last 5, 6, 7 years, they've not been able to produce players of their own who get in the first team on a regular basis?
Yeah, basically because this team won't need to win titles and prizes.
My verdict on the example of a big club with an academy in Manchester United would be to say that there's a medium risk as a player and really high reward. However, you also have a really good chance of a very solid career elsewhere and getting playing time now, as Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has restored that club ethos to full effect. My Manchester United bias will mean I will not choose them as the best club for young players, but I really don't have to anyway. Borussia Dortmund have fully convinced me. And look at Jude Bellingham. He chose Dortmund over United, proving that point exactly. Borussia Dortmund are simply the best place for young players to get opportunities, to grow, get good money, play at a high level, and earn a move to the top sides eventually if they're good enough. Plus, you get to play in front of those cracking fans. Statistically speaking, the worst place for a young player to be is in the Serie A, especially at clubs like Inter and Lazio, who failed to give any minutes last season to a player under the age of 21. Lazio's youngest player was 23. And despite their decent academy and some success stories, Tottenham had an average matchday squad age of 27.5 years last season, giving just one single under-21s player Premier League minutes in the form of a brief cameo. Dortmund are the top club for young players, in my opinion. But where would you like to play as a youngster? Let me know in the comments, and of course, subscribe to Kickoff.